say that where the sun is in the sky when you're born,
Yes.
that's your sign.
Right.
So you probably know your sign. What is it?
I'm a Cancer.
Cancer. And what's your birthday?
June 26th.
Okay. Do you realize 2,000 years ago, the sun was in the constellation Cancer on June 26th?
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. The correspondence of the sun has shifted against the background stars over the last 2,000 years. So it's an entire constellation off from the origins of the zodiac.
So what you just seen in this video is Neil deGrasse repeating for like, I don't know, I've lost the count how many times he has actually said it, but he keeps repeating this idea that because the constellation has shifted over the last couple thousand of years, this means tropical astrology has been debunked. Now while he doesn't really specify what astrology he's talking about, it is safe to assume that he's talking about tropical astrology. Since he is from the United States and the default system, just like any other Western culture country, is tropical astrology. That is what we use. Unless he actually specifies sidereal astrology, we can assume that he's clearly mixing constellations up with the seasons, which I'm going to explain in this video. That first, we need to separate the two things that often get mixed up: constellations and zodiac signs. Constellations are the actual star patterns in the sky. They're physical astronomical groupings that we can observe and measure. This is what things like modern astronomy uses and astrophysics uses as well. They use the constellations, which is what Neil deGrasse is mixing up and uses. Zodiac signs, on the other hand, in tropical astrology we are talking about, are not the same thing. The tropical zodiac is based on the Earth's seasonal cycle. It is not based on the constellations. I'm going to say it again, it is not based on the constellations. It divides the year into 12 equal 30-degree segments, starting from the vernal equinox, so Aries begins at the equinox, not when a particular constellation is overhead. So you go, Neil deGrasse, you actually learned something, congratulations. But you're only going to go and brainwash more people anyway, so congratulations on that too. You're brainwashing a lot of people, mate. Anyway, I'm going to get back into this. So anyway, because of the actual precession, the constellations slowly drift over time relative to the equinox points. There are a known astronomical effect, and astrologers have been aware of it for centuries. It is actually one of the reasons why we actually did separate sidereal astrology and tropical astrology. They are two completely different systems. Now sometimes you may hear that because you're not an astrophysicist, how could I possibly know what I'm talking about? Well, here is multiple sources that say exactly the same thing, that you can actually click and you can read. So the point that I'm trying to say is that this isn't a question of astrophysics. It's a question of definition, history, and how the system is actually structured. It goes by seasonal cycle. We have 4 seasons, which is summer, autumn, spring, and winter, which is also equally divided by the 12 zodiac signs. Now, of course, the zodiac signs and the traits that go along with it is more to do with solar seasons, but it's still based on a very similar mathematical system. So that is what I'm trying to say. You don't need to be in astrophysics to understand tropical astrology. Anymore, you need to be anything else to study something deeply. It's about the research that you do. And one thing I do want to say is that it's important to separate the two fields. Astrophysics is a science. It deals with the actual physical constellations. It deals with the physical universe, matter, energy, gravity, motion, and things that we can see and observe. It is a physical science. Astrology, on the other hand, is symbolic and interpretive. It works with cycle, archetypes, and meaning from planetary positions. It is a very spiritual system. It has nothing to do with the physical, like things that are physical and that you can see. So they're two completely different things. A scientist or any science cannot answer whether what religion is correct when it comes to dying, anymore they can answer how astrology works. Which you can see with Neil deGrasse, he obviously has no clue on how astrology works. So what I'm saying is that when someone uses the system of the constellation to debunk tropical astrology, they often critique something tropical astrologers were never claiming. The Greeks purposely actually made the system linked to the season. There is no actual thing where it was actually linked with the actual constellations, unless you are talking about sidereal astrology. The zodiac signs and tropical astrology are not fixed to the constellations in the first place. They are fixed to seasonal cycles, which is what paganism in general is actually about. It's about seasons, cycles, and nature. So before I do end this video off, I just want to say that another important distinction is between sidereal and tropical astrology. I don't want to go in a bit more in depth about this. So sidereal astrology tracks planetary positions relative to the fixed stars and constellations. This is much more closer to what Neil deGrasse is trying to say. And if you actually mention sidereal astrology, then he would be correct. But even then, sidereal astrologers are aware of this and they always update their system to pretty much go with the shift of the stars. Sidereal astrology is always updated. But tropical astrology, on the other hand, like we've said multiple times, like a drumming into people's heads, that it is fixed to the seasons, not constellations. But even then, both systems use real astronomical calculations, but they're not using the same one. The difference is the reference point, not whether the sky is being measured accurately. The meaning, interpretation attached to those positions are symbolic layer. The astronomy is the measurement, the astrology is the interpretation. And personally, I'm very interested in science, biology, astronomy and physics, but astrology never claims to be a modern science in the first place. So you need to actually understand the difference between the two. One is a spiritual practice, one is not, which is astrophysics, which is what I'm talking about. So when people like Neil deGrasse step into astrology and dismiss it based on a star sign, when he probably doesn't even know what his own birth chart says about him, then that is called a false authority, which you can read the definition here. It can be a bit like applying the wrong tool to the wrong discipline in one domain that is not actually yours. So that is all I'm going to say. So all I'm going to say is that at the end of the day, people can accept or reject astrology however you want. That is your choice. But you cannot make up bullshit and actually brainwash thousands of people on something that you have not studied. You can piss off there. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say. If you have listened, I do appreciate you. If you still want a dick riding, that's your decision. I do not give two fucks, to be honest. But I just thought I'd just clear the air and clear it up. That us astrologers are completely aware of the shift of the constellation, and that tropical astrology was never claiming to be with the constellations in the first place. Thanks for watching, and I really hope I do see you in another video soon. Alright, another thing I did forget to mention, and I should have been more focused on, is how about Ophiuchus? Is that a new star sign? But I'm gonna explain why it's actually not. So as we said multiple times, is that tropical astrology divides the year into 12 mathematical 30-degree seasons based on the Earth's relationship to the Sun. As you can see very clearly, Earth's relationship to the Sun, not constellations. So that would mean that pretty much season-based versus constellation-based. The tropical astrology is tethered to the Earth seasons. The astrological year begins at the spring equinox, which is 0 degrees Aries, and measures 12 equal segments based on the Sun's journey through the 4 natural seasons, which is spring, summer, autumn and winter. And based on that system, Ophiuchus does not get included because it does not affect our seasons on Earth. It just doesn't. So for example, the Sun is currently in Gemini when we're recording this video, so that means that it is winter in the southern hemisphere and it's summer in the northern hemisphere. But Ophiuchus does not affect our seasons in any way. So it is not a zodiac sign, it is just a star constellation, that's all it is. As you can see, constellations are not signs. This should be very clear, it's just not signs. So yeah, that is all I'm going to say. So Ophiuchus is not a star sign, at least in tropical astrology, and it never will be a star sign at all. Now, I know this is AI, and some people are going to say, oh, you use AI. Well, if I can just find my way back, you can search all through Google, and you are going to get the same answer. So this is not incorrect. And it does link some sources as well that you can look into to verify if this is correct or not. So yeah, that is that. Thanks for watching yet again.